I realize from this comment that when I say the statement photons experience time, people are assuming that that means from the photon's perspective, it's experiencing time. And that is not what I mean. You do not need a perspective to experience something. Let me give you an example. Here's my item label fish car. I've named him Bill. Link in my bio. We do not know Bill's perspective. We cannot inhabit the atoms that make up his plushy body. But we know that time passes for Bill. For one, you could see time passing because of the little progress bar at the bottom. You can consider that progress bar to be time coordinate. If at any point Bill's spatial coordinates are different from one time coordinate to another time coordinate, time necessarily has to have passed. So here you go. Time passed. We don't know what Bill's perspective was. We don't know from the perspective of its atoms what was happening. But we can objectively say, from our reference point, time is definitely passing for Bill. Because the particles that make it up were in two different states at two different spatial coordinates at two different time coordinates. Time had to have passed. So now let's talk about photons. Photons undergo something called redshift. Basically, the further away a photon is, the more it gets redshifted because space expands, and that expands the wavelength of the photon. Which means that photon has a shorter wavelength when it's emitted and a longer wavelength when it reaches us. It has changed both in its wavelength, its spatial coordinate, and its time coordinate. At that point, time had to have passed. We don't need to know the photon's perspective. In fact, we can't because it has no perspective. That's what all those other videos were about. But we can tell from our perspective, time is passing for that photon. And so photons experience time, not from their perspective because they have none, but from every other perspective, they experience time. This makes a lot of people upset because the idea of time stopping at the speed of light is really cool. And it's a misconception that gets repeated a lot because, like, if you apply calculus, if you calculate the limit as you get closer to the speed of light, yeah, it appears as if time stops, and that's a really neat tidbit to, like, throw at someone, right? But the reality is, time must pass for photons. In every reference frame that exists, time is passing for those photons. The photons don't have a reference frame of their own, but that doesn't mean that they're experiencing no time. It means they are experiencing time, because in every reference frame, they're experiencing time. This is right up there with things like faster than light travel or time travel or whatever. There's a lot of stuff in physics, sci-fi stuff, that sounds cool and that people really want to be true, but just isn't true. And it's just not the case that photons experience no time. It's just not true.